This is how you can speed up your metabolism by balancing your hormones so you can finally shed that stubborn body fat. Hi, I'm Dr. Sarah Zaldivar, and I was a nutrition professor for over a decade at the University of Miami, Miami-Dade College, and the American College of Sports Medicine. I was featured on the first ever TV show on the carnivore diet called Reverse TV series, and I've coached thousands of clients, helping them lose weight, raise their baseline dopamine levels, and balance their hormones so that they can shed that stubborn body fat. If you've clicked on this video, you've probably had a personal experience of trying all kinds of diets and protocols to try and lose weight, but no matter what, it feels as if you're driving with the brakes on. I've seen thousands of these cases in my practice, and so when I find that we're doing everything right and the body fat is just not going away, then we have to fix the hormonal imbalances. And oftentimes, once we do that, the weight falls off a lot more easily, and you can maintain it without yo-yo dieting for the rest of your life. There are a lot of causes for hormone imbalances, like nutrition deficiencies, or imbalances whereby you have too much of a certain nutrient and you actually have toxic levels of it, and we need to normalize that. Chronic inflammation is another one. Mitochondrial damage, which damages your metabolism, and so now you have a chronically slow metabolism. A leaky gut, or scientifically speaking, it's called intestinal permeability, meaning your gut is in poor health. Also, genetics can make it more likely for certain people to suffer hormonal imbalances, and environmental toxins like pesticides and heavy metals. The biggest cause I see, though, first and foremost, is insulin resistance. So it's very easy to reverse that, especially if it has not progressed to the point where you have type 2 diabetes. And so you can literally just cut out carbs, follow a ketogenic or a carnivore diet, and that is the fastest way to reverse insulin resistance. Also, exercise can fast track that process, both weight training and cardio, but especially high intensity cardio like sprints can reverse insulin resistance the quickest. Other hormones that can slow metabolism are a sluggish thyroid, or so slow thyroid function, high cortisol, high stress, and imbalanced sex hormones or low testosterone and high estrogen levels. Let's start with the thyroid. 1 in 5 women and 1 in 10 men have low thyroid function. And most people don't even know that they have it because most mainstream doctors will not order the full thyroid panel to detect very early signs of a slow thyroid. I filmed another video that delves into thyroid function. I will make sure I link it at the end of this YouTube video. But it's important to realize that the most common cause of hypothyroidism is eating gluten, which is found in wheat and certain grains. And that accounts for 30% of the most common type of hypothyroidism or slow thyroid, which is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease that attacks your own thyroid gland. Also, pesticides and heavy metals can interfere with the proper functioning of your thyroid gland. And if you are deficient in selenium, zinc, iodine, and omega-3 fatty acids, you have to correct those nutritional imbalances. And at that point, just changing your diet might not be enough. This is why it's very important for me that I run a micronutrient panel for my clients, especially when we detect a hormonal imbalance. Also, before I create a supplement plan for my clients, I make sure I give them a well-rounded organ supplement like ancestral supplements. And I like organ supplementation, or simply encouraging them to eat organ meats, because the vitamins and minerals found in organ supplements are in their most natural form. They're more biologically active. They break down in the body the way they're supposed to, so they don't build up to toxic level, as is the case with a lot of synthetic vitamins, and they are found in the proper proportion to one another. I find that with slow thyroid problems, you really have to be your own advocate, because a lot of mainstream doctors are going to resist ordering the full panel that's going to show us and detect very early signs of a slow thyroid. So what you really want to do is try to get your doctor to order it, and if not, try to get it yourself. And so what you want to make sure you have is the TSH, free T3, free T4, thyroid antibodies, including TPO, which is thyroid peroxidase, and anti-thyroid globulin antibodies, and also reverse T3. Reverse T3 is like the brake for your thyroid. So even if the other numbers are fine, if you don't check for reverse T3, you might still have a slow thyroid and you wouldn't know it unless you have the value for reverse T3, because reverse T3 kind of puts the brakes on thyroid production. it prevents T4 from converting into T3. And reverse T3 is going to show you if your thyroid function is being blocked by heavy metals, pesticides, yeast, like candida, which is very common because of years of sugar and carbohydrate addiction, or just eating massive amounts of carbohydrates. You end up having an overgrowth of candida or yeast. Also, inflammation and stress, all those things can block the conversion of T4 to T3. And so reverse T3 test can show you if this is happening or not. Also, some plant foods contain toxins that specifically damage the thyroid that are called goitrogens. And so you want to steer clear from soy and cruciferous vegetables like kale, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, bok choy. And this is why, again, I will recommend here that you try at least an animal-based diet and ideally a carnivore diet. Fish and seaweed are great for iodine, which is a main component of your thyroid hormones. So T3 and T4, your two main thyroid hormones, are simply just a tyrosine molecule, which is a form of a protein or an amino acid. It's one molecule, tyrosine, bound to, in T4, bound to 3 iodines. So T4 is tyrosine and 4 iodines. And in T3, it's one tyrosine molecule bound to 3 iodine molecules. And so if you are deficient in iodine, it is impossible to fix a slow thyroid function. And if you're trying to clean up the diet, a lot of times you're going to start getting real salt, like Redmond's real salt and Himalayan pink salt. And while they're great and a cleaner form of salt that has not been exposed to environmental toxins and microplastics, the problem is that they are not iodized, as opposed to in the past where you used to just buy regular store-bought salt, which was fortified with iodine. So pay attention if you make that switch with your salt intake, but you don't also pay attention to your iodine intake. You can boost your zinc intake by consuming things like beef and oysters, very rich sources of zinc. And in some cases, we might have to supplement with natural desiccated thyroid or glandular thyroid supplements, because I find that those are far more effective than taking the generic recommendation that most doctors usually prescribe, which is Synthroid, which is a synthetic form of thyroid supplementation. The problem with thyroid is that it's just T4, and so your body has to do the work to convert T4 into T3. But if you have environmental toxins, if you have exposure to heavy metals like mercury or lead or aluminum, pesticides, all of those things are going to block this conversion from T4 to T3. High levels of stress, inflammation, if you have some parasite or candida overgrowth that you haven't gotten to the root cause of and overcome that, then also you cannot convert the Synthroid, which is the T4, into T3. And so this is why I'm not a big fan of that kind of supplementation. Another major hormone is cortisol. A lot of people have high cortisol levels, which basically meaning they are under a lot of stress, whether it's emotional or physical stress, or it's because they have some form of inflammation inside the body because their gut health or nutrient imbalances are occurring. And all those things are going to increase cortisol levels. When cortisol goes up, your blood sugar goes up, and that can lead to insulin resistance. Also, when you have chronic high levels of cortisol, that can change your body fat distribution. And so you start having more body fat deposited in the lower belly area. And as if that's not enough, high chronic levels of cortisol can also lead to muscle breakdown. So it's harder for you to put on muscle or maintain your muscle, which can also slow down your metabolism. One of the most effective ways that I personally use and that I recommend to my clients in order to lower their cortisol levels is visualization. There are so many things you can do. You can do meditation, you can do yoga, breathing techniques, but I find that visualization often combines so many elements from all of the other stress relief activities that you could be doing. Plus, it also raises your baseline dopamine levels. My guide, Monster Mindset, breaks down the specific 2 types of visualization that I recommend, that I practice, and that I have refined and that I teach to my clients. And that can lower cortisol levels dramatically, increase dopamine levels by 65% in a single session. And then over time, your baseline dopamine levels also go up. So now you have more energy, less cravings. You are in a better mood, and you are able to stick to the diet and lifestyle changes that are required to balance your hormones. Another major problem I find is high estrogen levels or estrogen dominance, and I find that in both men and in women. High estrogen levels will lead to weight gain. As a matter of fact, steer are fattened up with estrogen pellets inserted into their ears. So what causes high estrogen in women and men? Sugars, carbohydrates, alcohol, Excess body fat, having excess body fat also leads to increased circulating estrogen levels in the blood. Gut health is critically important for normalizing estrogen levels. That's because when you eat a lot of carbohydrates, you're providing fuel for certain types of bacteria in your gut that create this enzyme called beta glucuronidase. And when you have high levels of beta glucuronidase, the body keeps reabsorbing the estrogen and it cannot be eliminated from the body. Beta glucuronidase is an enzyme that actually breaks down complex carbs and other substances. And so the more carbohydrates you're eating, the more you're sending the signal that you need more of the bacteria that creates beta glucuronidase, because you need the beta glucuronidase to help you break down the carbs. And high levels of beta glucuronidase not only reabsorbs hormones like estrogen, but also other toxins. And so it can lead to toxin buildup in your body. And the more you are reabsorbing estrogen and those toxins, the more you're going to increase your risk of cancer. A lot of cancers are related to high estrogen levels and high toxin levels. Also, if you've taken antibiotics, that can wipe out a lot of the beneficial or good gut bacteria. And when you do that, you have an overgrowth of those other kinds of bacteria that create more of the beta glucuronidase, and that leads to more reabsorption of estrogen and even higher levels of estrogen. We also have a lot of estrogen disruptors in our environment. We call those xenoestrogens. That means estrogens from outside the body. And so if you're using plastic containers or plastic bottles and those get heated and get in contact with the food or the water, it leaches those xenoestrogens, and then you drink the water or you consume the hot food, and that increases your levels of estrogen. Also, pesticide exposure. Personal care product ingredients, you really want to be careful what kind of shampoos you're using, what kind of lotions are you slathering on. All those kinds of ingredients need to be vetted to make sure that they are not contributing to this estrogen dominance. I really like the Environmental Working Groups app that you can download on your phone. And then when you go to buy your products, you can just scan the barcode of those products, and they will give you a score ranging from 1 to 10, and they will give you an estimate of how toxic or clean that product is. What are some symptoms of estrogen dominance or estrogen excess in women? You have things like skin pigmentation, like melasma, where you start having darkening of certain skin patches. And a lot of people who go on a ketogenic or carnivore diet report completely clearing those skin pigmentation changes or this melasma. And that's possibly because when you're not eating carbohydrates, you're starving the bacteria that create the enzyme beta glucuronidase, which then that enzyme, remember, it reabsorbs estrogen into the body. So no carbs, no beta glucuronidase, no reabsorption of estrogen, which means you can lower your estrogen dominance levels that way. Other symptoms of estrogen dominance are breast tenderness, mood swings, period cramps, and or bad PMS symptoms. Heavy menstrual bleeding, fibroids, weight gain, we already mentioned that, but especially body fat gain that is concentrated in the lower belly area because you have this body fat redistribution. So you have more around the hips and the waist. Also fatigue and fibrocystic breast lumps, low sex drive, weak or brittle bones, and fluid retention. And for men, estrogen dominance symptoms include enlarged breasts known as gynecomastia or man boobs or moobs. A lot of men end up getting surgery for it. I remember reading an article about The Rock getting that surgery. And so before you go ahead with the surgery, I highly recommend that you check your estrogen levels first and make sure that you've done everything you can so that you target the root cause of this increased estrogen levels, because gynecomastia or man boobs might be an early sign of this hormonal imbalance that over time, if you don't correct it, can lead to so many other problems. More symptoms of estrogen dominance in men. Oftentimes, when you have estrogen dominance, you also have low testosterone levels. And so that can also lead to muscle loss and brain fog and fatigue and weak bones or osteoporosis and low sex drive. Erectile dysfunction is another symptom of too much estrogen in the body. Also infertility and depression and loss of body hair on your chest, on your arms, and your body. So what can you eat in order to balance your hormones and lose that stubborn body fat and also improve your mood and all of the other symptoms that we talked about? Eat more fat and less carbs. You need more fat to get more cholesterol. So things like organ meats or even taking supplements of organs, desiccated or dried up, freeze dried organs, or egg yolks, shrimp, butter, all those things are rich food sources of cholesterol. That way, you can make more of those sex hormones like testosterone and also vitamin D. You need to have enough cholesterol coming in from your diet to be able to optimize for your own body's production of vitamin D. Also, you want to minimize as much as possible, or ideally, I would suggest cutting out goitrogens. Those are the plant foods that wreck your thyroid glands. Remember, we talked about kale and bok choy and all of the cruciferous vegetables. Also, make sure gluten is out of the diet. I also recommend focusing on high quality animal based foods. Again, ideally, I would go with a carnivore diet. You want to limit alcohol or completely eliminate it in order to prevent estrogen dominance. Exercise is also fantastic to lower excess estrogen and to boost testosterone levels. I will often also add in a SIBO or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth herbal protocol that can balance the gut flora and help improve gut health a lot faster than just with diet alone. I prefer an herbal protocol over the rifaximin, which is the antibiotic that is unabsorbed in the gut that usually most functional medicine doctors will prescribe, because it's more effective and it's safer than the rifaximin. And that can really help eliminate SIBO because sometimes diet alone is not enough to clear SIBO. If you found this information helpful, please make sure you share it with your friends and family members. Also, make sure you let me know that you like this kind of content by giving it a thumbs up, subscribing, and hitting that little notification bell icon so YouTube alerts you every time I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.